me get in here and show my slideshow. Wake up in there. Come on now. Don't give me a hard time. It was working 2 minutes ago. There we go. Helps if I press the right button. Anyway, so thank you so much. No, I don't want to leave the webinar. Pesky thing. Don't mind me. Shrinky. What is going on here? All right, we can just ignore that. So I'm going, can everybody see this properly? Is there anything weird?
We
hanging out
can.
on?
Nope. We see
Okay,
the
great.
screen looks great.
All right. My name is Jennifer McGuire. I'm with the Abramson Cancer Center at the University of Pennsylvania. And I'm going to talk a little bit about everybody that I've seen so far in these last few presentations that talked about the big enterprise-wide picture that for using elements. I'm going to talk about a very specific user experience that we have with a real sort of niche, thing. So a little background on who we are and what we do. So the Abramson Cancer Center at Penn, we're funded in part. What makes us a cancer center is a $51 million 5-year grant from the National Cancer Institute. That's a lot of money. Funds cancer research infrastructure, cancer education, community outreach, and most important for my little piece of the job, it catalyzes research interactions among our investigators. Now, this is not a small center. University of Pennsylvania is big. Penn Medicine is big. We have 321 member faculty. They're affiliated with 9 different cancer research programs and in 7 schools and 41 departments across the university. We have really got no control over these people or their data. Even if we had, the School of Medicine has a sort of centralized system, but really it's all over the place. We call ourselves a matrix organization. So trying to get the data for reporting on this grant is really, really difficult. And you can imagine that the care and feeding of this is really just pretty much absolutely constant. We just submitted, and this was my third annual renewal, my third 5-year renewal, our January 2020 application. It was a 2,100-page grant application, and let me tell you how grateful I am that these days we can do this online. Back in ancient days, we had to print out the whole pesky thing and ship it via FedEx. That was an adventure. So we have a lot of grant metrics. The ones that I am in particular in charge of keeping track of is, of course, our membership, all of our members' grants, and all of our members' publications. We have to report, so what did we do with that $50 million? Reasonably, the NCI would like to know what we did with that taxpayer money. One of the things that we have to report is publications. We have to collect every year. We collect a list of journal articles and published in peer-reviewed journals for all 320 of some of our faculty members. I have to then provide a curated list, narrowed down to just cancer-related publications to our leadership. And that's really essential data, not just because we report total numbers and the details of collaboration between and across our programs, but also the publications are foundational when our program leaders and our cancer center director are doing their write-ups to talk about what have we done, what fantastic research has happened, how do we demonstrate collaboration, how do we show that we're working as a cancer center. So this is foundational information. And the problem is that there's no easy way to get that. I want to give you a sense of the scope of numbers that we're dealing with here. And if we were in a room together, I would ask if anyone had any guesses as to how many unique cancer-related publications we have over a 5-year period. I can't ask you, so I'll just show you. For the 2020 competitive renewal, we had just over 4,200 relevant publications over 5 years. That's including publications that are authored by multiple PIs, and it's an insane amount of data. How do we get this? Well, the first time I did this in 2010, that data collection and management was a 100% manual process. Now, there's one place to get everybody's publications if you're not familiar with it. The National Library of Medicine has a massive index database called Pubmed. Anybody for free can go on there and look up the papers, articles, research that anyone has published in a biomedical journal. That's a fantastic resource. Some of them also will link to the articles themselves. There's a whole other module, but this is your tax dollars at work, so this is great. Like, cool. So we go to PubMed, we pull people's names in, and there we are. Which sounds great till you're dealing with 320 people, 5 years worth of data. I go in and search on, for example, Robert Vonderhaay, the director of our cancer center, and pull up all of his information, and it's pretty specific. And then there's somebody like, E.J. Brown. I can tell you from personal experience, there are at least 3 people with the initials E.J. Brown publishing in biomedicine. Only one of them is a member of our cancer center. So the first time we had to do this was in 2010, and it was the most harrowing manual process. I had to manually go in and do a search of PubMed for every single one of our members, pull their publication. I used EndNote, and just grind and grind and grind and deduplicate and run all the matches. And it was a nightmare. It was not accurate. I mean, it was the best we could do, but I know there were things that were missed. And of course, there was no way to duplicate it. Okay, so I downloaded this information piecemeal, person by person. But if I needed to go back and check something or run the report again, I had to start all over. Horrible. Now, we did, in fact, manage to get that grant, and it was fabulous. We got an exceptional. But it rolled around again. We started rolling around again in 2015. And I thought, we cannot. The amount of staff time wasted on this was just absurd. What are we going to do? And then I got a phone call from Penn's library, and they said, hey, we've got this new system, this great vendor called Symplectic. We're bringing it in. Would you be interested in being part of the beta test? Because we know that, in particular, faculty publications are really important for you. I said, yes, please. That would be amazing. So what Elements does for us is it does all that data collection for us, pulls all those publications in, and puts them in one spot. So I don't have to worry about it anymore. Once they're in, they're in. So we provided Symplectic with a list of our members. I was given administrative access to that publication module for every single one of those people, because as everybody knows, faculty are busy. They don't necessarily have time to go in to a unique system and add stuff in, and nobody's got time for that. Even if we'd had any way to enforce that across even the School of Medicine, never mind the university, it wasn't going to happen. But I was able to go in, and what Elements does, that publication module is great because you set the parameters, name variants, target databases. For example, there's PubMed, there's Scopus, there's ORCID, there's a whole bunch of stuff out there. Crossref, variations of names, E.J. Brown, Eric J., all of those. Narrow it down by institution. So I'm only getting Eric J. Brown at the University of Pennsylvania and just PubMed. And then Symplectic goes out, Elements goes out and it combs all those databases and it pulls all that data back in for you. And it gives this handy dandy list of publications that you can simply approve or reject. It's fantastic. So all I have to do, it's still labor intensive because I've got to go and check every person, but go in, look at the list, say, yep, that's theirs. Nope, that's not theirs. Yep, that's relevant. It's great. And once it's reviewed, click one, done, finished, finito, it's there, and then I can download that information into my internal databases and do all of the other manipulation that's needed to run lists, match up things for programs, all the stuff. I won't bore you. There's a lot of work in the background still. But what I have is a solid data source, and that is absolutely was transformational for 2015. Much more solid data, a whole lot easier to work with. So, I mean, that's what it does. It's great. They did some improvements. So by the time we got around to the 2020 competitive renewal, they had added this amazing option which auto approved publications based on standard identifiers like the Scopus ID, like ORCID. So you're able to go into an individual profile and the system will ask, hey, we found this Scopus ID. Is that this person? Yes, it is. Okay, great. Anything that comes through with this Scopus ID, I'll automatically approve. That cut down considerably for the 2020 renewal on the amount of work that I had to do, because the only thing I had to deal with was the outliers. All the routine stuff came right through. Another really useful element, I mentioned that frequently we'll have co-authors. You know, Carl June and Steve Grupp and all of these other people will have worked on some phenomenal leukemia cures. FDA approval, yes. So I can look at an individual publication and notice, oh, X, Y, and Z are also authors on this. Make a note, go back and make sure that it's approved in theirs as well, so we don't lose any of those cross references. It's been phenomenally helpful. As I said, it's very niche, but publications are one of those strange, unstandardized, weird things, and the option to just be able to get that reliable data together in one spot. So I can work with it 4,200 plus publications for our 5-year renewal. Absolutely sanity saving. So that's where we're at.
Great. Thank you so much, Jen. That was great. We will wait for questions to come through. Just a second. Let's see. Okay, so first question that came through, did you preload identifiers?
There really aren't any identifiers to preload. I mean, we preloaded our a couple of name variants, last names and initials. We didn't have at the time any access to Scopus IDs, and the first time we did it, it wasn't relevant. The big problem is that there's no easy single identifier. The NIH seems to be trying to maybe think about standardizing with ORCID. But the best we could do was put in names and initials in the standard PubMed format and hope for the best. And it really did make a big difference. As you go on, you can start narrowing down combinations. If you find somebody with very common last names or very common combinations of initials, you can go in and narrow it by institution the way we did with E.J. Brown. And it's a real challenge, but this really helps.
Okay, great. So you did not use any ORCID IDs or anything like that at first?
Okay. We did not use ORCID IDs or Scopus IDs. At first, they weren't available, and we don't have any records in-house that would have allowed us to load that in. They're just talking now about requiring everybody at Penn to have an ORCID ID and dropping it into our data warehouse. But that is still in the works, especially as people have been pulled off onto COVID-19 projects. And yeah. Even so, while it's a great identifier, not everybody uses it. Not everybody has gone in and goes in and makes the connection necessary to hook it up in the ERA Commons for the NIH and then therefore connect it up to all their publications. So there's no really useful identifier that's absolutely going to work for everyone.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, great. I think that was the last question. So thank you so much, Jen, for your time. We're going to move on to our final presentation of the day, which is Matt Ramey. But I think Matt, not sure I have you listed in the